Something that has also been an important part, or an interesting part of how people have talked about your role here, is how your role has reshaped the perception of masculinity. And I'm not sure you planned on that, but you are an incredibly supportive spouse. Has that been an evolution for you? And do you think that's part of the role you might play as first gentleman?
It's funny, I've started to think a lot about this. I've always been like this. My dad was like this, and to me, it's the right thing to do.
The right thing to do? This kind of reminds me of this guy's viral moment with Dr. Jill Biden. Y'all remember this? And guys, I just want to thank y'all for being here. Thank you for hitting the like button and subscribing. Thank you for also hitting the link down below and joining us over in our Patreon community. You guys are awesome. Let's get started. To this day, I still don't understand why they had to do this on national television. There was a crowd of people and this was the State of the Union address. Do any of you guys do this to your friends? Because they want to make it seem as if Donald Trump and JD Vance are weird, but then they got this guy as the second gentleman. And the left is desperately trying to lift this man to heights that he's never been to. Now, of course, they have to make it seem as if he's the perfect husband, the perfect partner, even though Psaki had trouble getting the words out at the very beginning there. Now, this is a must given that Kamala Harris is shown by mainstream media as a strong woman. But one thing is certain, the more that preach that you're virtuous and that you're good, the higher the chance that you're hiding something behind closed doors. And we really don't have to go very far to cite an example. The Democratic Party has fawned over Sean Diddy Combs for years. I mean, you got Kamala Harris, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, all these Democratic elites, mind you, praising Sean Diddy Combs. They said that he's a game changer for politics. Oh, he's a game changer, all right.
The disgraced music mogul facing federal racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking charges. Both the prosecution and defense teams are set to discuss the next phase of action following the indictment as investigators work to determine potential co-conspirators. But how exactly did we get here?
The sex trafficking case against Sean Diddy Combs moving full speed ahead. Lawyers for Combs and prosecutors set to hold a status conference to determine the next phase following the sweeping indictment alleging the music mogul leveraged his business empire, power, and prestige to abuse his alleged victims.
He used his business and employees of that business and other close associates to get his way. Those individuals allegedly included high-ranking supervisors in the business, personal assistants, security staff, and household staff.
As the disgraced rapper faces racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution charges, investigators now working to determine who his alleged co-conspirators were and whether they too should be charged.
But once the allegations started coming out, they suddenly forgot his name. They've all forgotten the baby oil. And Diddy has been one to talk about righteousness and protecting our democracy. In fact, he's a part of the demographic that has cited violence against Donald Trump.
White men like Trump need to be banished. People don't really know me. Like, I'm blessed that I have the money to start this political party. I'm not gonna make no apologies for how much cake I get.
And we know that this guy got a lot of cake. Have you seen his videos? There's some cake up in there. But you could see how mainstream media tried to make you believe that this guy was a hero. As the digital landscape becomes the new battleground for our nation's security, the threat to our critical infrastructure and personal data has never been more real. In January 2022, Ukraine experienced a sombering reminder of this reality when the Whispergate malware targeted their power grids, banking systems, and communication networks. And this isn't just an isolated incident. Cybercrime is projected to reach a staggering $10.5 trillion annually by 2025. But there's one name that's standing firm on the front line to protect our country's assets. Plurilock isn't just another cybersecurity company. They're a powerhouse that delivers cutting-edge cybersecurity, software engineering, and IT solutions to both public and private organizations across the globe. Plurilock trades on the OTCQB exchange under ticker symbol PLCKF, and they're seeing impressive revenue growth, which nearly doubled over 24 months. From $36.6 million Canadian in 2021 to $70.4 million Canadian in 2023. And this year, They've already signed more than $20 million in new contracts, plus another $19.3 million contract representing the largest single sale in company history was just announced with an S&P 500 listed semiconductor company. What sets them apart? Their leadership boasts some of the most respected minds in the field, including retired Admiral Mike McConnell, former head of the NSA, Patrick Gorman, the former CIO for the U.S. intelligence community, and the former head of cybersecurity for Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, and Bridgewater, Ed Harmersla, former president of Raytheon Cyber Products, Joe Sexton, former director of CrowdStrike. These aren't just experts. They are the people who wrote the playbook on modern cyber warfare. Their influence and experience make Plurilock a trusted partner for federal agencies, including NASA, the Department of Defense, the U.S. Treasury, Air Force, Navy, Homeland Security, and many others. Plurilock has been awarded contracts by over 30 government departments and serves as a vital cybersecurity partner to major hospitals, airports, pharmaceutical companies, and some of the largest semiconductor companies in the world. With revenue that nearly doubled in just 2 years, Plurilock is proving that they're not only up for the challenge, but they're leading the charge in protecting our nation against evolving threats. In these uncertain times, where our enemies are no longer just on the battlefield, but behind keyboards, it's companies like Plurilock that ensure our digital infrastructure remains unbreachable. Because when the stakes are this high, we need the best on our side. Investors can find Plurilock on OTCQB under ticker symbol PLCKF, or they can click the link in the description down below of this video to learn more about Plurilock. And then videos of him beating up his then girlfriend Cassie came out and everyone suddenly shuts up, which is right in line with what we're going to talk about with regards to Second Gentleman. Megyn Kelly broke out the news that Emhoff is not the man we once thought he was.
This so-called always supporter of women actually smacked an ex-girlfriend in the face. Either a smack or a punch. It was unclear, according to the Daily Mail's exclusive reporting, that this super guy who's redefined toxic masculinity actually beat a woman that he was dating prior to Kamala. The Daily Mail reports that he did not respond to requests for comment on the article. What does that mean? There's not even going to be a denial? I guess they'll get around to it. It's just an allegation right now, but let me tell you, take some time today to read that Daily Mail report because it's incredibly detailed.
All right, so let's go over this report and let's see what we can get. This supposedly happened back in May 2012 after a Cannes film festival in France. It's alleged that Emhoff assaulted his ex-girlfriend. He was said to have hit her so hard that she spun around. Now, I'm not sure if you guys are aware of how fights work, but for someone to physically turn around because of a punch or a slap, it's got to be extremely hard. This man should be under the jail. The story was shared by 3 friends, with one of them citing that the ex-girlfriend called him immediately after the attack. She was said to have been crying as she was inside of a cab. We don't have her name, and I think it might be best for her own protection that it's not shared publicly. Instead, she's named Jane in this article. The friends were able to share photos of Jane and Emhoff together from 2012. None of them have agreed to have their names released as well because of fear of retaliation. To be fair, they are releasing damning information about Kamala Harris's husband, the same guy that we're supposed to believe to be the new symbol of masculinity. He's been called a wife guy and a mensch. That's a Yiddish term for an honorable, kind man, which again is completely different from the story that we're reading. And remember that Psaki did this interview even after allegations of Emhoff impregnating his daughter's nanny came out? This was back with his first wife. So basically he cheated on his first wife, nutted and impregnated another woman, and we're supposed to see this guy as a role model for us. Jane also says that Emhoff confessed about the nanny and said that he paid her $80,000 to settle their case. He also ensured that she wouldn't talk by having the nanny sign an NDA. Him cheating caused his first marriage, which lasted 16 years, to break down by 2010. And as we all know, he met Kamala Harris in 2013, and well, the rest is history. Now, do you guys think that this is the guy that's supposed to be imitated by the youth? That he's an ally for women? And I want you to understand that he allegedly hit Jane because he thought that she was flirting with a valet worker. Now, I could see how that works given what he's done and gotten a nanny pregnant in the past. And this story is now giving light to what Kamala Harris stands for, or at least it's casting a very dark shadow to the things she said before. So let's just go back to this tweet from Kamala Harris in 2018. It didn't age well, did it? But she says that she wore black to support all survivors of sexual assault or abuse. #BelieveSurvivors. Her face here is telling us another story though, as if she's disappointed or something to that effect. We also have to note that these friends of Jane agree that Emhoff was intoxicated when he attacked her, which now leads me to The Guardian and an interesting write-up that they did recently. So the title reads, "Be a man and vote for a woman. Kamala Harris's unlikely edge in America's masculinity election." Now think about this for a second, guys. There's been a lot of stereotyping when it comes to masculinity, but they want us to buy this type of narrative that a woman that's married to an alleged woman beater is the one that we should be voting for. And to be honest, it's not an argument about gender roles. It's about who's right for the job. Because if you tolerate a man who's willing to smack a woman so hard that she spins around, then that's something that voters will have to consider. Not everything can be edited or scripted nowadays, especially not facts that happened in the past.
You know this is the Biden-Harris administration. Are you aware that this is the Biden-Harris administration? And she is indeed the vice president.
Not only does she inherit these numbers and contribute to them, she was the tie-breaking vote on $3 trillion of spending bills. So she is almost personally responsible for the massive inflation that you just showed on that chart.
President Biden tapped Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, to be the border czar.
The criminal cartels are running the entry into America, and the numbers are at a 21-year high.
Challenges that we're seeing at our southwest border. No one knows this better than the Vice President.
Kamala Harris, mostly silent after bragging about her role in helping shape Joe Biden's disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal.
Just made a really big decision. Afghanistan. Yes. Were you the last person in the room? Yes. And you feel comfortable? I do.
The body of American Hirsch Goldberg, Poland, and 5 others were, quote, brutally murdered.
These hostages were discovered in the tunnels under Rafah. That's where Joe Biden and Kamala Harris put pressure on Israel not to enter for a month.
And we're looking at about 1.5 million people in Rafah. I have studied the maps. There's nowhere for those folks to go.
That's the weakness that leads to the death of hostages.
Are you aware that this is the Biden-Harris administration? And she is indeed the vice president.
Everything that has happened to us within these last 4 years can be directly attributed to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy.
That report, which was mentioned last night in the debate, came from an independent analyst. And it's interesting, Scott. I think a lot more has been made of this than should be. And the reason I say a bigger deal has been made of it is what it showed is the difference between the sets of policies that they put forward was about 0.2%.
Which is why Wharton School of Business, which is why 16 Nobel laureates determined after analyzing our plans, one, mine would strengthen the economy, his would weaken it.
Believe it or not, folks, we're already living the Kamala Harris experience. This is the economy that she's so proud of. Now, I'm not sure about you guys, but I know for a fact that prices have only gone up since Joe Biden and Kamala Harris got in office. And yet they're trying to fool us into thinking that this ain't their fault. But as far as we know, it's called the Biden-Harris administration. And yet the officials continue to blame Donald Trump for most bad things. Even when Donald Trump is citing their own government for job numbers, he's still portrayed as a liar. And it went horrible for Secretary of Commerce Gina Raimondo. I'm not sure how she got this gig, but it's very clear she's not qualified for this position. Donald Trump took shots at the job numbers that the Biden-Harris administration has been touting for years. And reports show that many of these numbers were created out of thin air.
When you hear that, do you potentially think that this new numbers could be a liability for this campaign?
No, when I hear that, first of all, I don't believe it because I've never heard Donald Trump say anything truthful.
It is, though, from the Bureau of Labor.
I'm not familiar with that.
That's extraordinary. How could the Commerce Secretary not be aware of those numbers, Mr. Senator?
Because of extraordinary incompetence. You know, Stuart, I was hearing a week before those numbers were released that the downward revision be somewhere around 1 million. She's the secretary of the department that publishes the number. You know full well, on a network like yours, financially based, that people anticipate these reports. The fact that she didn't know anything about this report about the downward revision is literally just jaw-droppingly incompetent.
As embarrassing as that is, Raimondo, she isn't done. She's determined to make the economy look good by saying that Donald Trump will drive us into a recession, even though a majority of the country believes that the former president is good for our economy. A whopping 65% of voters feel right now that the country is heading in the wrong direction, with 50% saying that Donald Trump is the key to a better economy. Only 41% believe that Kamala Harris can do the same. Talking about numbers here, right? 59% of voters rated the economy as bad. And I want to show you the train wreck that Raimundo is, because she's still trying to say that Kamala Harris is better for our economy. This is despite the fact that our economy is in a sorry state at the time. Just listen to how she's fact-checked by CNBC on the air.
Look, we have had a soft landing, okay? Inflation, we haven't slayed it totally. It is on the way down. We need stability, predictability. And what you will have in him is unpredictable, chaotic, based upon how he feels on a particular day. And I do worry that the tariffs, but last week he said a 200% tariff on John Deere. Where does that come from? That will only raise prices and put people out of work at John Deere.
Well,
so
we've had
we can't afford
surrogates on,
it. It is way too risky.
When we've had surrogates on for the Trump campaign, they have said that he doesn't really mean any of these things. They would just be tools for negotiation.
Then why does he say them? Why would I believe that? He says it. He's doubled down on it. He repeats it. By the way, he was president. We know what that resulted in. Massive
like you kind of forgot that. Seems like you kind of forgot that earlier. Yeah, and the tariffs that he did put on were continued by the Biden administration. There was no recession. Real wages were actually up. Stock market did well. A lot of very positive things happened. Record low unemployment until the pandemic. So it's just weird to act like it's a complete wild card what kind of president he would be when you've got a blueprint right there of what kind of president he would be. And Kamala Harris has been vice president for 4 years, and we've seen exactly what kind of vice president she would be.
Now, she tries to defend Kamala Harris here, but we all know that this is an impossible task. The last 4 years have been disastrous for the United States. I mean, we got an open border policy, prices have gone through the roof on everything, food and energy are unaffordable, and financial aid is only given to either illegal immigrants or foreign nations.
Reported that in 2019, Kamala told the ACLU she supported cuts to ICE funding and she supported taxpayer-funded gender transition surgery for illegal immigrants and, by the way, convicted felons. But if Kamala gets her way, she won't stop there. You might remember in 2019, she told CNN's Jake Tapper that she supports free housing, health care, education. Take a look.
You support giving universal health care, Medicare for all, to people who are in this country illegally?
Let me just be very clear about this. I am opposed to any policy that would deny in our country any human being from access to public safety, public education, or public health, period.
And yet they try to pin the awful economy during the pandemic on Donald Trump. It's delusional at best, because it's not like Donald Trump was the guy who created the virus. You can thank your boy Fauci for that. But still, they want to pin the job losses and the real wages going down on the former president. They don't want us to remember that they released trillions of dollars in government spending, which has contributed to what you and I are experiencing to this very day. So if things go well, it's because the Democrats and their leadership, huh? But if things go wrong, then we can all blame Donald Trump. That's their logic. And I want to give her the last word here because this is just the cherry on top.
There is more new manufacturing construction in this country now than at any time since World War II. It's a fact. Manufacturing jobs are on the rise, wages are on the rise, prices are coming down, deficits are high but headed in the right direction, and tariffs will hurt this economy, hurt working people, raise prices, and I worry tip us into a recession.
Now, speaking of which, remember when Vice President Kamala Harris had a campaign event at a local Pennsylvania restaurant? The one where customers were kicked out to give way to Kamala Harris supporters who were there with her? Well, JD Vance thought it would be a good idea to visit this place as well. Now, guys, I did a previous video where I covered this and the unthinkable happened. Be sure to watch that video because I'm not kidding when I say a lot of people were pissed off about what the manager did to JD Vance. Now, as always, guys, appreciate you guys watching. Thank you for hitting the like button and subscribing. We'll see you guys next time.